Okay, good evening. Parsha's Bechukosai. So, 3 ideas. We haven't got long. We ran over a little bit because of the halacha shit. But let's see if we can get through all 3. There are 3 fabulous ideas. Parsha's Bechukosai, of course, deals with the teichacha. First, you have the good part. Im Bechukosai teilechu, ves mitzvosai tishmu, v'asisamosom, and all the brachas. And then you get onto the teichacha. So, I want to focus first on the good part. And 2 amazing ideas. So, if you're listening online, please email me at j.golker@gmail.com and I'll send you the handout. The beginning of the Seder, Parshat Bechukosai, starts off, like I say, with the brachas in Bechukosai Teilechu, etc., etc. V'nosati kishmeichim be'itom, v'nosn haaretz yevula. There'll be rain in the proper time, and the fields will produce its crop. V'etz hasoda yitin piriu, and the fruit will appear. Pasuk Vav, a couple of psukim later, v'nosati shalom ba'aretz, and I will create peace in the world, I will place peace in the world, U'shechavtem, you will lie down, ve'ein macharid, and you will not be frightened, ve'hishbati chaya ra'ah min ha'aretz, and I will remove all wild animals from the land, v'cherev le'savar ba'aretzachem. Now, what does that mean, ve'hishbati chaya ra'ah min ha'aretz? I will remove wild animals from the land. So the Sifra actually has a machlokus about what it means. So take a look at the next box. Lo yureim mikol beria. You will not be scared of any living creature, because it says v'hishbati chayra min haaretz. I will remove any wild animal from the land. Rabbi Yehuda omer ma'avira min ha'olam. They will become extinct. In other words, no more lions, no more tigers, no more wild animals. Says Rabbi Yehuda, total eradication. Reb Shimon Omer, no, mashbison shelaziku. I'll remove the dangerous aspect of them. You know, you can have a pet cat, a pet dog, and a pet lion, a pet tiger. They won't be dangerous la'asid lavai. Omer Reb Shimon, and I'll prove it to you, says, when you praise Hashem, bizman she'in mazikim, when there are no dangerous animals at all, or bizman she'yesh mazikim, ve'in mazikim, or when there are, but they just don't cause any danger, don't cause any harm. They're there, but they just don't injure. The Yom HaShabbos is the day of Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbos is the song of Olam Haba. We sing it as when Shabbos is made Olam Haba, and we sing it as Shabbos is ushered in. So it refers to it's referring to that there'll be a total peace in the world, that dangerous animals will not actually be dangerous. So you have a fascinating machlokas. Rabbi Yehuda says that v'hishbati chaya min haaretz means the total eradication of animals from the world, but Rabbi Shimon says that there will still be wild animals, but they will not scare or endanger. Now, Rabbi Isaac Bernstein quoted this machlokas, and then he said, it brought an amazing Rogatchover going. The Rogatchover was the great Rav in Dvinsk, in the same small town of Dvinsk. He was the Rav of the Hasidic Olam, and the Meshech Chachma, the Ar Sameach, Meir Simcha, was the Rav of the Litvish Olam. So this tiny town had 2 giants. Now the Rogatchover was known to be a genius, and he sort of replicated this machlokas of Reb Shimon in a totally different area, in the concept of biur chometz. How so? Because there is a Mishnah at the beginning of Kol Shah, the second paragraph of Psachim. The Mishnah says there, how do you get rid of your chometz? So Rabbi Yehuda says, ein biur chometz elav sreifa. The best way to get rid of your chometz, in fact the only way to get rid of your chometz, says Rabbi Yehuda, is to burn it, which is of course what we do, if possible. Next year, I think, or whenever it is, when Erev Pesach falls on the Shabbos, you can't burn it, so you flush it down the bath, the toilet, or whatever it is. You just get rid of it somehow. But Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ein bi'chometz el esreifa." V'chachamim oimrim, af mefarev v'zoyre leruach v'matal liyom. No, you can crush it and throw it to the wind, or you can throw it into the sea, so long as you get rid of it. Now, the Chachamim is later identified as Reb Shimon. Says the Rogatchover, you see exactly the same machlokas regarding this, because the pasuk says Shivas Yomim Matzos Techelu, Tashbisu Sa'ar min Bateichem. You get rid of Sa'ar from your houses. Now the shaila is, what does Tashbisu mean? To eradicate. So Rabbi Yehuda L'Shitaso says Tashbisu means total eradication, total annihilation. The only way to do that is to burn it. Reb Shimon, however, says, no, that just like with the animals, you're changing their form to some other way. They're there still, but they're just not dangerous anymore. And that's a kiyum of V'hishbati chayim in haaretz. Well, so too, when it says tashbisu se'omer b'teichem, it's some form of transformation. Even if the same physical entity exists, you're crushing it or you're throwing it into the sea, but there's been sufficiently transformed that you fulfill the mitzvah of tashbisu se'omer b'teichem. So you see that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon are l'shitosom, that they understand the words tashbisu or v'hishbati to either mean total eradication, that's Rabbi Yehuda, or some form of transformation, according to Rabbi Shimon. Now, Rabbi Bernstein then quotes the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says that this machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon and the understanding of what the word tashbisu v'hishbati shovas, what it actually means, you find in another machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Where is this? We know that there is a famous machlokas throughout the Gemara Shabbos about melacha she'ein tzricha. Now, melacha she'ein tzricha means that you're doing a melacha, but not for the same purpose that it was done in the Mishkan. That's the simple understanding. So I'll give you an example. You trap a wasp on Shabbos. That's not a deraisa. Why? Because when they would trap animals on Shabbos, one of the 39 melachas is Seder, they would trap animals because you need the skin, you need the hides, you need the dye from the animal. But if I'm trapping a wasp because it's going to injure me, it's going to sting me, then it's a melacha she'ein tzricha legufa. It's not trapping for the purpose of this particular melacha in the Mishkan. Now, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon argue about melacha she'ein tzricha legufa. Rabbi Yehuda says melacha she'ein tzricha legufa is chayav. And Reb Shimon says, "Melacha she'ein tzricha legufa is pata." Says the Lubavitcher Rebbe. You know what the argument's about? It says in Shmos in Parshas Mishpatim, "Sheishes yomim taseh masecha, u'v'yom hashvi tishbos." On the seventh day, you've got to rest. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, the word tishbos, v'hishbati, or tashbisu, means total eradication in its purest form, total. And therefore, the act, this melacha, cannot be done on Shabbos in any way, shape, or form. And therefore, melacha she'ein tzricha legufa, I'm trapping a wasp on Shabbos, even though it's not for the same purpose in the Mishkan, it's also because this act cannot be done whatsoever. Again, he understands that by Yom HaShvi Tishbos means total rest, and you can't do these melachas come what may. But Reb Shimon understands that if you alter the nature of the act, even if the act is the same, then I've ceased doing it. And therefore, when he says, Sheishes yom taseh masechu v'yom hashvi tishbos, tishbos means from doing it in the way it was done in the Mishkan. But if I've changed the purpose or the way I'm doing it so that the animal won't sting me, and not for the purpose in the Mishkan, then that's okay. And therefore it's a melacha she'ein tzricha legufa, and it's mutter. So you see just a remarkable thing, that a simple pasuk in this week's Parsha, v'hishbati chaya ra'ah, and I'm going to remove all wild animals, and the Sifra says, it's machlekes, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, what does that mean? Rabbi Yehuda says that means total eradication, they become extinct, and Rabbi Shimon says, no, they'll still be there, the wild animals, but they just won't scare, won't endanger. The root of the machlekes is, how do you understand the word v'hishbati? Does it mean total eradication, or just you're changing the nature of it? And that machlokas, that understanding, has two other manifestations. One is in random places. One is in Bir Chometz. The pasuk says tashbisu se'omer b'teichem. So Rabbi Yehuda says, right, total annihilation and destruction, and therefore you've got to ein Bir Chometz at a b'streifa. But Rabbi Shimon says, no, you just need some form of transformation, even if the actual physical entity stays the same, and therefore the Chachamim, which is identified to be Rabbi Shimon over there, is Mafara v'Zor Barach or Mataliyom, etc., etc. And says the Lubavitcher Rebbe, that's the machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon and melacha she'ein tzricha legufa. Rabbi Yehuda says that this act cannot be done on Shabbos, by Yom HaShvi Tishbos. You cannot do tzeder regardless, and therefore melacha she'ein tzricha legufa is chayiv. And Rabbi Shimon says, no, any of the 39 melachas, if it's not done for the purpose of the melacha in the Mishkan, therefore if I alter the nature of the act, then it's okay. So a fascinating explanation of the word v'hishbati which appears in the Sifra and based on a pasuk in this week's Parsha. Okay, let's. We paskin like Rav Shimon. The Rambam famously paskins like Rabbi Yehuda in that regard, but we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, like Rav Shimon, that Malach Shin Shvich L'Gufa is part of.
That the lions and tigers will still be there, but they won't be.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you paskin like them in all respects, but I guess time will tell. Okay, now the next idea, if you turn over the page. This I heard on the OU Parsha app. I was traveling yesterday somewhere, or Monday, so I listened for a couple of things, and my friend said over a beautiful idea from someone called Shlomo Zalman Ullman. A really beautiful idea. So in the good parts of the Teichacha, in Bechukosai Tishmuru, in Bechukosai Telechu, Ves Mitzvah Tishmuru, Vasisam Esom, V'nosati Geshmeichim Be'itom, all the good stuff. And then the last pasuk of the good part says, Ani Hashem Lekechem, Asher Otzeis Eschem Eretz Mitzrayim, Miyosachem Avodim, V'eshbar Moitois Ulchem, V'oilech Eschem Komemius. What does that mean? V'eshbar Moitois Ulchem means, I will break the yokes that are upon you. Now, what does that mean? Moitois, so I've got Rashi there in the third box. Moitois, they're kamin yesed, and I've actually got a picture. I don't think I've ever done that before on a Parsha sheet, but I've got a picture. Feel free to color it in if you want. But if that is a yoke, the animal puts its head, if you're listening online, email me and I'll send you the handout, but the animal puts its head through the middle. And you've got the bar across, and you've got the bar underneath. The animal puts its head through the middle, but you've got two staves, they're called, or two pegs, that actually connect the sort of keep them in place, as it were. And that's what Rashi says. Kamin yesed hatchuva b'shnei roshi ha'ol ha'ma'akvim ha'moseir sh'lotetzim rosh hashav v'yatzer akash. That the yoke is held in the position by this pair of wooden staves on either side of the ox's neck. So that's what it means. I will break the yoke of the staves. Of your yoke. That's what the pasuk says. Now, if you think about it, a very similar, not a pasuk, but a sentence appears in Birchas Hamazon. We say at the end of Birchas Hamazon, Harachamon, lots of Harachmons, Harachmon yifaseinu v'choved. And then we say, Harachamon hu yishbar oleinu me'al tzavarenu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should break the yoke which is on our neck. When you sort of bend down on a yoke, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will break it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take us standing upright to go to our land. So very similar words. In this week's Parsha, V'eshbar moitos ulchem, V'oilech eschem komemius, and Harachamon hu yishbar uleinu me'al tzavarenu, V'yolechenu komemius artzeinu. A lot of people say oleinu. It's hu yishbar uleinu, like an ol. Our ol, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should break the ol from our necks and take us upright to our land. But if you look carefully, there's a slight difference between the two. In this week's Edra it says, V'eshbar moitos ulchem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to break the yoke. He's going to break the staves, these pegs which hold the yoke together. But in benching we say, Harachamon hu yishbar uleinu. He actually breaks the yoke itself. So why the difference? So he quotes someone called Shlomo Zalman Ullman, who says a fabulous pshat. Imagine you've got a farmer who's coming towards retirement. And as he plows his field for the last time, after 60 years of being a farmer, he said, I've had enough of this farming business, it's time to retire. He is not going back to farming, so he will take the yoke and he'll break it. He doesn't need it again. But at the end of the ploughing season, if he was going back next year, so then he wouldn't break it because he's going to need it next year. I know kids in school now doing their exams, GCSEs. There's a terrible practice in some, and I tell them that it's wrong and that we don't do this. But at the end, they want to burn their textbooks. Jewish people don't burn books. You might not like your physics or your geography or history, so put it in the recycling bin. Yeah, we have too many sad memories of burning books. But imagine the kid's doing physics, but he's doing physics A-level. He's not going to burn his books, because maybe he'll need to refer back to his GCSEs because he's forgotten something and he needs to check it out. You only break it fully if you're not going to use it again.
As part of the
The what?
Was about breaking off
the yoke. But so imagine the farmer. If he's retiring fully, he's going to break the yoke. He doesn't need it again. If, however, he's going to come back next year, he's not going to break his stuff. Therefore, in Parshas Bechukosai, in the good part, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "V'esh b'moto sulchem." I'm going to break the staves of your yoke, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew this is Golus Mitzrayim. This is now, but there's going to be future exiles, and therefore I can't break the yoke fully, because there'll be Golas Paras and Modai and Edom and Romi, and there'll be other Golios. And therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll break the stave so you can get out of this Golos, but I can't break the yoke fully because there'll be future exiles. Masha Enkein, when we bench, we say, Harachamanu Yishbar Uleinu Me'al Tzavarenu, V'Yoyolechenu Kamisatenu, we're davening that it'll be the end of all Golios. There'll be no more Golos. And therefore we say we don't want to just break the staves of the yoke, we want to actually break the oil itself, because we don't need to be subjugated in this way anymore. Therefore we have that difference. And therefore we say in benching, and not the motos of the oil. An amazing insight. Okay, let me just finish with one short final idea, a fascinating idea. And this is, I heard in the name of Rabbi. One of the great Baalei HaTosfos is the Rabbeinu Tam. The Rabbeinu Tam was actually a grandson of Rashi, and he features, throughout Shas, in many, many Tosfos, you have the Rabbeinu Tam. Now, the Rabbeinu Tam, it's a very strange name. You ever thought about it? There's no one, we know of who calls their kid Tam, Tov Mem. What is the background of this name? So there are different, ideas put forward. The most posh pshat that what was his name really? His name was Yaakov. His name was Rabbi Yaakov ben Meir. He was a brother of the Rashbam, and his mother was Miriam, who was the daughter of Rashi. So we know his name. It was Rabbi Yaakov ben Meir. So if his name was Yaakov, why is it called Rabbeinu Tam? So the posh pshat is that it's referring back to with Yaakov and Esau, Vayigdal Hanarim, Esau Ishsayed, Yodei Ishsayed, V'Yaakov Ish Tom Yoshev Ohalim. So Yaakov Avinu was a person of the tent. He was studious. He was erudite, and therefore we refer to Rabbeinu Tam, whose name was Yaakov, as Rabbeinu Tam. Yaakov Ish Tom Yoshev Ohalim. That's the standard reason given. Others, I heard this also from Berawine, that he was so brilliant and he was so outstanding in all areas, his parents were worried that he might attract an Ein Hara. So they gave him a nickname which is a bit of a pejorative, i.e. he's simple, Tom. And therefore that it shouldn't sort of attract too much attention to him, and it stuck, and he was known as Rabbeinu Tam. That's what I heard. But I heard a third reason, and that is based on the Pasuk in this week's Parsha. Take a look. This is in the bad part, in the Teichacha. So the Pasuk says in Perek Chavav, Pasuk Yutes, V'shavarti es ga'oin uschem. I will break the pride of your strength. V'nosati es shmeichem kabarzel, and I will make your heavens like iron, that they won't produce rain. V'es artzachem k'nechusha, and your land will be like copper, that it will just it will sweat and it will destroy the crops. Rashi explains, V'tam lorik koichachem. Your strength will be spent, will be expended in vain, for no reason, lorik. And the land won't produce its crop, and the ground won't produce its fruit. Now, there used to be a practice, a very sad practice, that when couples would get engaged, you give a nadan, you give a dowry. So the girl's family, the girl's family would give a dowry to the chassan, and many times in medieval times, through bad health and immortality rates and anti-Semitism and crusades, that the girl may die or become ill, and the engagement will be broken. Now, what happens to the nadan, to the dowry, in that situation? So the practice was that the dowry would stay with the chassan's family, and it would cause terrible hardship, because they've saved up and they put away money, and then their daughter gets engaged, and it's a tremendous simcha. They would give the nadan to the family of the chassan, And then tragedy strikes, that the daughter became very ill or died, and they had to break off the engagement. And then to add salt into the wound, they would, the Chossen's family, keep the money, and they made the Kala's family destitute. And the Rabbeinu Tam opposed the practice very strongly, and he said that the practice was a fulfillment of this pasuk: "V'tam lorig koichachem," your strength will be spent in vain. All your koichas in gathering together this money, this nadan, to give to the Chossen's family, it's all spent in vain. And he instituted that the nadan, the dowry, should be returned to the family of the kala, of the bride. And he wrote a letter to that effect. And he inscribed this decree that it had to be returned with the words, "V'tam," and there should be an end. Tam means to finish, to complete, an end to the curse of "V'tam lorik koichachem," of that your energy, of your effort, your strength will be spent in vain. And because he signed this and it became very popular and people were very grateful to him, there should be an end to the curse of "V'tam lorik koichachem," he became known as Rabbeinu Tam, based on this. So fascinating historical insights from this week's Parsha of why the Rabbeinu Tam, otherwise known as Rabbi Yaakov ben Meir, he was not known as Rabbi Yaakov, but he was known as Rabbeinu Tam for one of these three reasons mentioned. So there we have it, three ideas from Parsha's Bechukosai. The first, that Rabbi Bernstein bringing together this idea of hishpati, whether it means total eradication or just a change of nature, has application in the brachas of this week's Sedra, in Bir Chometz, and in Melach Hashem Tzricha L'Gufa. Remarkable. And then we have this fabulous idea of Shlomo Zalman Ullman. Why is it for Eshber Moitos Ulchem in this week's Parsha, but yet in Birchas Hamazon we say Harachman Yishbar Uleinu Me'atzav Reinu? Why not Moitos Ulchem? The answer is because we daven for the complete end of Godus. And therefore, we don't need the tools anymore. It's down tools permanently. We can get rid of the yoke. And therefore, we don't need to just destroy the staves, but to destroy the whole thing. And lastly, based on the pasuk of Tam Lorik Koichachem, perhaps one of the reasons why Rabbeinu Tam is called Rabbeinu Tam. Okay, thank you.